Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. All right, so before I get into the mist, again, great shout out to the company Matcha. And, why not get ahead of the curve, instead of being typical and saying this whole thing where with the New Year's resolutions, and I'll get into that on January. Why not just take a step towards that and get healthy and just understand that being healthy isn't something that it's trendy to do or something. It's just something, if you take good steps, good measures, you will really reap the benefit towards it. And a company like Matcha can help you get yourself on track with that. And then, it's nice to also have a company that understands that, there's more to just being trendy with matcha, because, that's been in the circle a lot and, popular a lot. Matcha. But what actually is it? And they do that quite well. All right, so you get a 15% discount when checking out, and use the code The Harboring to get that discount. You won't be disappointed. The mantra is great. All right, again, that's Matcha, and then use The Harboring when checking out. All right, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Speaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. These are just to name a few. And I can't stress enough how important feedback is. And please feel free to reach out to me. The best way to do that is through email. And I greatly appreciate those who have done so. Thank you so much. All right, so it's Friday. And happy Halloween to you and all. So on Fridays, centered around all of you. And this time I'm going to focus on the aspect of the Asian language and the dialects with that. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into my thoughts before I get into the facts here. So, the Asian language, and, it really is a good example of the aspects of how culture influences language here. So, what am I saying about this here? Case in point. So, in American language, you have a distinct difference between the regions in which people are living in. So, if someone is from the East Coast, that's highly represented in the sort of dialect that is spoken. Someone's from the West Coast, is different. Someone's from the North, the South, it's all different. Even though, we are all speaking American languages, the American language is all different. Now translate that into the aspects of the Asian dialect. Now, a lot of people have the aspects of saying, and then, for instance, Taiwanese is not the same as Chinese. And these are completely different region, just complete, not only region, it's the culture. That's that the most part is just completely different, and the dialect is not the same. It's along the lines of saying the same aspects of talking about, the Spanish from Mexico is the same as the Spanish spoken in actual Spain. And then, Venezuelan and Argentinian languages and all that. It's in the hub, but it's not the same. The culture is completely different. Now, going back to what I said with, even though in America, we're all speaking the same, the American language here, English, but the region is different. Now, a really good example of this, of what I'm saying in the Asian dialect, is the aspects of Cantonese language, and then you get in the aspects of going to, from what I understand, with the aspects of Chinese language versus city, urban, how people communicate in the city versus the rural sort of aspects of speaking Chinese. The tonal language is different. And that has to do with the impact and the aspects of the atmosphere. That, one is from the rural part of China and one is from the urban city aspects of China. And also within that, you have vastly different cultural influences too. Now, versus when you get into the Japanese language with Korean, you get even in the aspects of South Asia, when you get into India and the dialect, the overall compass is that even though these are from the Asian, it's from, these cities, countries are from, these cities and everything are in another country, and with India and everything, and the aspects of that, even though they're in the same wheelhouse as the Asian dialect, is completely different in the way that the language is understood and developed, and the culture has a lot to do with the influence of how it's presented too. All right, so with this said, I'm going to get in the aspects of the facts about the Asian dialect. And this is going to be a survey, about the whole continent, breaking it down. And then on next week, I'll get into specifics with as far as my listeners who tune in to me. All right, here we go. All right, of course, sources will be provided for you in this episode. Okay, so it says this. All right, so the origin of let me say that again, sorry. The origin of Asian languages is complex and involves multiple distinct language families rather than a single common ancestor. So the continent is home to a vast array of linguistic groups, including the Sino-Tiberian, Tibet aspects, the Indo-European, the Atlantic, the Austronesian, the Austro-Aztec, and others, each with its own origin and historical development. So this Sinto, Tibetan language family, one of the largest in the world, is believed to have originated in the Himalayan plateau or the Yellow River Basin, which is of northern China, which some researchers are suggesting was the homeland in northern China around 5,900 years ago, while others theorize its place as the emergence as far back as 9,000 years ago. So this family includes Chinese, Tibetan, Burmese, and numerous other languages spoken across China. So the Himalayan region and parts of South Asia. So the Chinese branch, along with over 1.3 billion speakers, and has a significantly influenced neighboring language through cultural and political dominance, particularly during the pre-modern period when literary Chinese was adopted by scholars and ruling classes in Korea, Japan, and included with this is Vietnam. So forgive me for the pronunciation of this, the Trans-Surasian language family, which includes Japanese, Korean, and several languages of the Siberian and Central Asia, is thought to have originated with grain farmers in China around 9,000 years ago, with architect playing a key role in its spread. However, Korean is generally classified as a language which is isolated from it, meaning it's not definitely linked to any other language family, although some theories suggest possible connections to the Atlantic or the Uralic languages. So other major families include the Euro-Asian language, which originated in Taiwan and spread across the Pacific and Indian Oceans, and the Euro-Aztec language, which are considered Austronesics to the South Asian and the Eastern Indian subcontinent. So the Kai-Dai and the Hmong-Ming family also originated in southern China and spread to the mainland of South Asia, often due to immigration and displacement. So in South Asia, the Indo-European family, particularly the Indo-Iranian branch, is dominant, including languages like Hindu, Urdu, and Bengali, which share a common ancestor with European languages. So meanwhile, the Dardanian language are primarily spoken in southern southern India, and are irrelevant to Indo-European. That's why some Asian languages are distinct genetic relationships, such as the Indo-European languages across Europe and Asia. Most Asian languages families have independent origins and develop through distinct historical, cultural, and geographic processes. So my thoughts before I move on to more facts here. I'll be right back. All right, so my thoughts here. Now, again, I think it's important to cite more than just talking about what an AI generated response is saying. So, that's the aspects of relying heavily on just what is, presented to you, and instead of digging deeper and understanding the facts. And I think that's a whole different episode in itself. But my point is that if you dig deeper and look at the different layers, that gets in the aspects of becoming more objective. When we get in the aspects of factual history about things, or factual digging and understanding the deeper measures about data in which we understand things. And so the Asian culture, the Asian dialect, is also a really good example of the aspects of perspective and philosophy. So at the heart of the matter, most of the time when it's considered, when the language and the culture are considered, when we think about and we talk about the Asian language or the Asian culture, at the forefront is the philosophies that come within this. And so this is a primary example also about the aspects of how fundamental the thought and the placement of spirituality has on the development of how people view themselves in the world. Even if it's a total disdain towards it. That's still, or there's a nuance towards it, or there's a middle road towards it. That all of these things, wrap themselves into situating how people communicate with one another, and also with the aspects of how languages develop too. And so the Eastern philosophy is a really delicate measure of how, the understanding the importance of balance in the situation of a person in themselves, in their lives. And then when this is trickled down to the aspects of language, it's really, you can see how they go hand in hand. Now, unfortunately, when you get into countries like China, you get into, and then going on to countries like that with the communist rule, that also changes the aspects, with North Korea and so forth, and these kind of dictator sort of dystopian can get that way, really. It also shapes and changes the way that people the languages develop, and the way that language is communicated between people, because it's really good examples of how dogmatic perspective strips away from being truly enlightened in the aspects of how to function or how to think about things and your placement with other people. Okay, so with this said, I'm going to get into more facts here. So here we go. All right, so here's more in-depth aspects about the the Asian dialect, and this is from Britannica. So the language of Asia is richly diverse. The vast majority of people of continental Asia speak a language in one of three language families, which include the Atlantic, which consists of the Turk, Mongolian, and the Tungusk subfamilies. So the second is the Sino-Tibetan, which includes the Chinese and the Tibeto-Burman languages. So finally, it's the Indo-European family, which consists of the Indo-Iranian and the Iran and the Iranian and the Slavic languages, as well as Armenian. So these people are peninsula and insular Asia. However, speak numerous other languages, including in the Austro-Asiatic and the Thai and the Hmong, the Mao Yao and Dravidian families, as well as Japanese, Korean, and a vast number of Asian languages. And the underrated language lumped together with the Palo-Siberian areal category are also spoken on the western bounds of the Asian and the Arabic and the Hebrew, which is named as the Afro-Asiatic language. And see, in this whole thing where it's popular now, which is crazy to me, to deny where your heritage is, or to say, oh, it's an insult to be of another, LeVar Burton really, before it's more prevalent of his viewpoint here, people like LeVar Burton really hit the nail on the hammer. And what do I mean by this? So there was a series called Finding Your Roots or something like that on PBS. And he made it prevalent to say, and then people like him make it prevalent to say, I'm black, pro blackity, black, blah, 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 blah. And anything else is an insult to my destiny or to my lineage. and disregarding to the aspects that it's more prevalent, and for the fundamental part that human nature, it just doesn't work that way. People with the aspects of intermingling with different races, this is something that has been going on to the dawn of man, and it will continue to go on, even though it's been it's ignorant to say that segregation and real racism hasn't existed. Of course it has, but what my point here is that you have to be appreciative and understand the input of how that influences culture when people intermingle with each other from different aspects, different ethnic groups, and how that spawns from. I think it improves culture in itself, and that's something to think about. How that in itself also develops language too. All right, and these examples here that I'm reading are showing this, because it's saying Afro-Asiatic, and then it's going on to the Arabic influence and all of these things. There's numerous examples of the aspects of how different cultures influence the way people communicate and influence the words and languages and that are thought about, that are the way that different people's perspective of how they see objects, inanimate objects, or other people, and using words to express that can't be expressed in their someone else's native tongue, and then coming together and merging a language to express a thought. That's really impactful. So and the Caucasian languages consist of at least two unrelated families, except for the extensive eastward expansion of Russia, a Slavic language. So the pattern of a language distribution in Asia has remained relatively stable since the 18th century. So, however, many of the languages spoken by ethnic groups, numbering a few thousand or less, have become functionally extinct and exist today. If at all, only the records of it exist. So these fragile groups cannot long withstand the onslaught of more politically and economically influential language that often are imposed along with new cultural patterns. So among the dominant languages that have gained speakers is in Russia, which remains the primary public language in Siberia, and is still important in the Central Asian republics, and they have been taught to a large number of non-Slavic inhabitants. Similarly, the Mandarin Chinese, now generally called as the common language in China, is spoken by more people than any other language in the world. Although such language with the Wu and the Cantonese has also retained their vitality. And so, where I understand with that goes into the aspects of regional language with it more like rural. So in India, where more than 20 languages are officially recognized, the larger regional languages are not losing ground, despite numerous increase in the Hindu-speaking population. The major language of northern India, including Hindu, evolved from the Sanskrit and are members of the Indo-European language family, while these languages of southern India belong to the Dravidian family and include Tamil and Telugu. More than 10 different scripts are used in India. An Indian banknote has its value written in about 13 Indian languages and also in English. So Hindi and English are the official languages of the Indian central government. Now, the dominance of Hindi has become a political issue in parts of India where it is not their primary language. Now, the island nations of South Asia, each with hundreds of local languages, have adopted national languages to facilitate communication. So, Indonesia's official national language is the Bahasa in Indonesia. But hundreds of local languages and dialects remain in use across the vast aspects of the archipelago. So the Javanese, for example, has more than twice as many native speakers as the Bahasa in Indonesia. So in the Philippines, which also has hundreds of local languages and dialects, has adopted Filipino or the Filipino, a standard form of Tagalog. So this is a national language, although it is the first language of only about 1/4 of the population. So English, the language of administration with the Philippines, was a U.S. possession. So it remains in wide use. Both English and Filipino are official languages. All right, so factors such as ethnic migration, extended commerce, and political flux continue to complicate language patterns in many parts of Asia. So around the old century, Asia oasis in southern Siberia migrants from Russia, and the exiled ethnic groups have created ethnically and linguistically mixed regional populations. So as European Russians move into the new cities in Central Asia and Western Siberia, Russia became the language of the cities. So the older languages have been confined chiefly to the countryside. So in other areas, the economic attraction of the cities, both for foreigners and for rural poor. This has cited urban linguistic patterns of increased complexity. So again, the aspects of influence when it comes to the territory and the economic influence also has a major part in the way that it was shaped the dominant language too. And that's something to not escape because, most of the time, really, what people define themselves is in the aspects of class is, your economic class. And that really shapes the way that people communicate with one another and also the way languages developed or fragmented or, left behind too. All right, so this reaches the end. And of course, I would like to know your input about this episode. Feel free to reach out. Now, happy Halloween to you and all. And we're on to the start of the next holiday season, which is Thanksgiving. All right, so happy, Halloween to you and yours. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.